What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my game picks and predictions heading into Week 7 of the 2024 college football season. Going back to my game picks and predictions from last week in Week 6, my record was 5-5. So my overall record throughout this college football season for making game picks and predictions is 35-27. So not a bad record for me, but last week was definitely a lot of chaos. We could see a lot more chaos going into this weekend because we have a bunch of good games coming up this weekend. Some of them rivalry games, but also some really good top 25 matchups as well. And I'm going to give you score predictions for 10 of the biggest games in my opinion, even though that score predictions don't matter. What really matters is I'm choosing the team who I think is going to win. So let's go ahead and get right into these 10 games and give you score predictions for each and every single game that I'm predicting here for this weekend in Week 7 of the 2024 college football season. And we start things off here with a Friday night game. I meant to put October 11th. It's actually on a Friday. So we got Utah versus Arizona State, 10:30 Eastern time on ESPN. Utah favored by 6.5, and the over and under is at 45.5. I haven't really heard anything about Cam Rising. Don't really know if he's going to be playing in this game once again. There's just a lot of question marks there for this Utah team without Cam Rising. You got Utah that's coming out of a bye week, so maybe the bye week does help them out just a little bit to really get, prepared for this game after the loss to Arizona a couple weeks ago. But this is an Arizona State team that I think is really going to be fired up in this one. They're taking on a top 20 team in Utah. I feel like Utah, if they lose this game, if they lose back-to-back games against unranked opponents, they'll definitely be out of the rankings in my opinion. And, I tell you what, without Cam Rising, I feel like this Utah team is not going to be really confident without him. So with that being said, I'm going to say this game will be based off if Cam Rising doesn't play. So with that being said, Arizona State, I think they pull off the upset with them coming out really fired up. I think they do just enough here to pull off the upset. And again, Cam Rising might not play in this game. If he was going to be playing 100% in this one, I would definitely choose Utah here to pull off the win, but I feel like without him, Arizona State's going to pull off the upset, so I got the Sun Devils winning this one 24-20. Again, this game is actually on a Friday night, not on Saturday. It's on Friday night on ESPN at 10:30 Eastern Time. So Utah favored by 6.5, but I got Arizona State pulling off the upset here 24-20. Next up, we got South Carolina versus Alabama, noon Eastern Time on ABC. Alabama favored by 21 points, and the over and under is at 50.5. How does Alabama bounce back after the loss to Vanderbilt? That'll be the question mark here for the Crimson Tide. They're back at home for this one. South Carolina is a team that's coming off a really bad loss to Ole Miss from this past weekend. This is a South Carolina team that beat Kentucky in week number 2. This is a South Carolina team that has a pretty good defense, but I feel like South Carolina is going to really have a hard time stopping the Alabama offense. I think Alabama comes out really angry. I think they come out just like Georgia from last week against Auburn. They come out really angry after the loss to Vanderbilt from last weekend, and I think they get a big win here. So I think Alabama bounces back. This is not a big game, but I thought I'd just include Alabama here on this video because I want to talk about them and see if they can bounce back after they lost to Vanderbilt. So I got Alabama here winning this one 38-17. I think South Carolina scores some points, but it won't be enough. Alabama does win this one. They dominate 38-17, and this one is at noon Eastern Time on ABC. Next up, we got Clemson versus Wake Forest, also at noon Eastern Time on ESPN. Clemson favored by 20 points, and the over and under is at 60.5. Clemson coming off of the win against Florida State. It wasn't their best win, to be honest. They didn't really score a lot of points in that game. They didn't really look like the same kind of offense that we saw, in the last few weeks in their ACC conference games. But Wake Forest, they're coming off a win against NC State. Do we think Wake Forest has a shot here to pull off the upset? I don't really think so. Clemson just way too dangerous in this one. I think, maybe Wake Forest does give Clemson a scare for the first few minutes, but Clemson definitely will pull away. I think Wake Forest does score some points, but I got to go with Clemson here 35-20. I think, I think Clemson will definitely be up big in the fourth quarter. They'll probably do some subbing, and I think Wake Forest probably scores, some points in the fourth quarter, but I just don't think Wake Forest is on Clemson's level. There's no way that I think Wake Forest will pull off the upset here. So got to go with Clemson here, 35-20. I think they have a much better offensive performance as well compared to the Florida State game. Next up, we got Texas versus Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry here at 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Texas favored by 14.5, and the over and under is at 49.5. Texas looks like Quinn Ewers is going to be back from injury, it looks like, so that's the good news there here for the Longhorns. They're 5-0 coming out of a bye week. Same thing for Oklahoma. They're ranked number 18th in the AP poll. Oklahoma doesn't have like the best offense, but the defense is definitely the strength of this team. Now, don't get me wrong. I think, with Hawkins at quarterback, with him running the football, I feel like Oklahoma can definitely waste the clock down. They can definitely try to, keep that Texas offense off the field. But I don't think it's going to be enough. Like I talked about in my upset alert video, if Quinn Ewers does play, Texas might win this one by a couple of touchdowns, and that's exactly what I think I'm going to go with here. But if Quinn Ewers didn't play, I feel like, Oklahoma would definitely make this a close game, and they definitely would have a chance to pull off the upset. But I think Texas beats Oklahoma here, 28-14, just because Quinn Ewers is back from injury. They win it by double digits, and they probably cover that spread at 14. So I got Texas winning this one, 28-14. Next up, we got Penn State versus USC, a Big Ten Conference game. This will be the 3:30 CBS kickoff time. Penn State favored by 5 in this one, and the over and under is at 47.5. You got Penn State coming off a pretty good win against UCLA. This has been a really good team. I think they're definitely a top 5 team and also a top 10 team in my opinion. But USC, this is a very tough place to play. I know USC is coming off a disappointing loss to Minnesota and everything. USC has had some turnover problems in the last couple of weeks, against Wisconsin and then also Minnesota. So yeah, this will definitely be a really tough test here for USC, but it also will be a really tough test here for Penn State. This is actually, I think, Penn State's second road game of the season, if I'm not mistaken. The last time they had like a really true road test was against West Virginia, so this is definitely their first true road game of the season against a USC team that's 3-2. They're not really a bad team, they're just coming off a disappointing loss. Maybe USC was overlooking Minnesota and they were definitely looking ahead to this game. I think USC will make this a close game, but I don't think it will be enough. Penn State, I think, has played really solid football, and I do trust Drew Aller to kind of make the explosive plays down the stretch. I think Penn State wins this one by a field goal. It could be a game-winning field goal. A turnover can probably change the difference. I'm going with Penn State, though, 27-24 in this one, and it will be the 3:30 CBS kickoff time. So the second time I believe USC has had like a 3:30 CBS kickoff time, or maybe it's like the third game. I can't remember, but Penn State, I got them surviving here, a close one, and I got them winning this one 27-24. Next up, we got another rivalry game, Stanford and Notre Dame at 3:30 Eastern Time on NBC. Notre Dame favored by 24, and the over and under is at 45.5. You got Notre Dame coming out of a bye week from this past weekend. A couple weeks ago, they beat Louisville. That was a big win for them. They also got the win over Texas A&M. But they got that one loss to Northern Illinois, a team that they probably should have beaten back in like week number 2, but either way, Notre Dame's been a pretty solid team. Stanford, on the other hand, this is a rivalry game. Stanford actually could pull off the upset here. I'm not going to lie here. I think this is one of those upset alert type games because, like I said in the upset alert video from yesterday, we've seen Notre Dame play, against some teams that were, they were favored by over 20 points. We've seen them, play really bad against like these teams that they're favored by 24. So I feel like Stanford can actually like compete here for a half or two. I think it, could be a low-scoring type game in the first half, but second half, I feel like Notre Dame will probably pull away, and I think, Notre Dame does just enough here. They're playing at home, and they come out really fired up in the second half. They win this one 31-13, so yeah, I think Stanford does score some points. I mean, Stanford does have like a good receiver on their team that can probably give them some, really good offensive, play and everything, but it won't be enough. Notre Dame wins this one 31-13 in this rivalry football game, but don't get me wrong, if Notre Dame does not play their best, they're definitely not going to be able to win this game, and they're also going to struggle big time. I mean, Stanford, though, like I said, could pull off the upset. They've done it before against Syracuse back in like week number 2, I believe, or week number 3. But I got Notre Dame winning this one 31-13. Next up, we got another rivalry game, Florida and Tennessee at 7:30 Eastern Time on ESPN. Tennessee favored by 15.5, and the over-under is at 54.5. Tennessee, how do they bounce back after the loss to Arkansas this past weekend? They're favored by a big margin. That spread, again, does really shock me that Tennessee is favored by 15.5 in this one. You got Florida that's actually been quite better in the last couple weeks. You know, they beat Mississippi State back on September 21st, and they had the bye week, and then they beat UCF on October 5th. They came out really focused in that game. I thought the defense played pretty well. So, yeah, this Florida team, watch out for them. They could pull off the upset here, but I feel like Tennessee, just like Alabama and Georgia, you know, from, you know, this past weekend against Auburn and then Alabama against South Carolina, I think Tennessee is going to come out really fired up, and I also think they're going to come out really angry, especially after a game they probably could have won against Arkansas. They had a chance to probably take care of business against Arkansas at the end of the night, but Tennessee, I think, playing at home in one of the toughest places to play, and also a night game here for Florida. I think it's going to be too much, but I do expect a close game here. Maybe home field advantage might favor the difference. Tennessee, though, wins it 31-24, and I think Tennessee beats Florida here. They get revenge on the Gators from last year's game as well. So Tennessee beats Florida here 31-24. Next up, Ohio State and Oregon. This is a tough one. 7:30 Eastern Time on NBC. Ohio State favored by 3, and the over-and-under is at 53.5. Both teams come in undefeated. Pretty sure College Game Day is down here. I can't really remember. I have to go look back at that, but Ohio State and Oregon, both teams ranked in the top 5. They're both 5-0 on this season, and I'm kind of surprised. I am very surprised, like I said in my upset alert video from yesterday, that these two teams are playing on NBC instead of like being an ESPN game or a Fox game. I kind of am surprised that this is not the big noon Fox kickoff, but either way, it is what it is. It's a big matchup either way, no matter what channel it's on. And I've been really back and forth on this game. Now, in the preseason, I did pick Oregon here to win this game, and I feel like both of these teams are just pretty even. I mean, I could say that home field advantage might be the difference, but I feel like Ohio State has definitely performed a little bit better than Oregon. I know Oregon had a tough time in the first 2 games. They do have a chance here to pull off a huge win, but I think I trust Ohio State a little bit, especially on the offensive side of the football, and I do trust Ryan Day to kind of make the plays at the end of this one. And I think Ohio State just does enough. I think turnovers will definitely be the key here for both of these teams, and I'm going to go with the Buckeyes here, 24-21, a close game here. I think it will be a low-scoring type game in the first half, but second half it will be about offenses here, and I do trust Ohio State here a little bit more. I know Dylan Gabriel is a pretty good quarterback. You kind of trust him to make the explosive plays, but like I said, I was really back and forth on this game, and I'm definitely changing my preseason pick here. I'm going with the Buckeyes here, 24-21. And then, finally, we got Ole Miss versus LSU. Or I should say this is my 9th game. Ole Miss versus LSU at 7:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Ole Miss favored by 2.5, and the over-and-under is at 64.5. We're kind of expecting a lot of points to be scored in this one. You got LSU that's coming out of a bye week, and then you got Ole Miss coming off a bounce-back win against South Carolina this past weekend. Both teams ranked in the top 15, in the top 25, I should say, but just inside the top 15. Ole Miss just inside the top 10. And like I said, I think this will be a high-scoring game. I think LSU, though, will come out fired up. The bye week should help them out to, prepare for this high-powered offense of Ole Miss. But I do expect a high-scoring game. I feel like it's going to come down to a turnover, and also I think a touchdown could probably change the difference, but I think a turnover can probably change the difference as well. So with that being said, this was a tough one to call. I'm sticking with my preseason pick here. I'm going to say that home field advantage might be the difference here, and I'm going to go with LSU to pull off the upset, 41-34. So yeah, a high-scoring game. Both teams are pretty even on the offensive side of the football. It's going to come down to who has the best defense here and who can force the most turnovers. So I got LSU beating Ole Miss here, 41-34. And then finally, we got Colorado versus Kansas State in the Big 12 at 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. Kansas State favored by 4, and the over-and-under is at 56.5. You got Kansas State and Colorado, both teams coming out of bye weeks from this past weekend. Kansas State defeated Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago. They blew them out 42-20. Colorado beat UCF pretty easily as well. So both of these teams are pretty similar, although Colorado is not even ranked. Kansas State, though, they're ranked number 18. I think this is definitely one of those upset alert type games. You know, in the preseason, I did pick Colorado here to win this one. I'm still not going to change my pick. You know, I've been liking how Colorado has been playing for the last 2 games. They beat Baylor 38-31, and then they also beat UCF pretty easily. This definitely looks like a different Colorado team compared to the Nebraska game, and also definitely to the North Dakota State game in week number 1. So yeah, this Colorado team, I think they'll be really fired up. It is a night game. I think the crowd will be fired up as well, and I think the crowd will just definitely make Kansas State make a lot of mistakes in this one. But I do expect still a close game. I think it will be a high-scoring game here between both of these teams, and I'm actually going to go with Colorado here to pull off the upset, 35-31. Again, a 4-point win here for Colorado. They go over that spread over Kansas State, and they get the win here. So Colorado pulls off the upset, 35-31, and we will see what happens in all these games for this weekend. So those are my game picks and predictions heading into Week 7. Again, a big-time weekend of college football for the 2024 season, and what could happen here. So these are my game picks and predictions. Give me your game picks and predictions on these 10 games down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.